Who did that? Who was it? Fatboy Slim that did the song with Christopher Walken dancing?
Weapon of Choice, isn't it?
Weapon of Choice, yeah.
I think that's right, yeah.
I always get him and like Oakenfold and the other...
Moby, maybe?
It wasn't Moby.
No, I know it's not Moby.
Moby never did anything that cool.
I'm just saying, like of the early to mid-aughts kind of individual techno. I don't even know if techno is the right term.
They're like electronica, I think, right?
Yeah, I guess that term got more generic and more broad over time. Yeah, Weapon of Choice is the name of the Christopher Walken.
Yeah, pretty good video.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
You haven't seen that. Like that one, that's up there with like that Jamiroquai video with all the freaky bugs and stuff, but also where the broom moves around him, and you show that to people and you tell them it was made when it was made, and they're like, how'd they do this? What kind of, like, this is all computer devilry. And you're like, well, there's a little bit of computer devilry, but mostly it's just they put a room on wheels.
Mostly a large moving room.
Yeah.
People like Moby more than you think, although I think, in my experience, but nobody admits willingly to liking Moby. They all seem to do it grudgingly.
Look, that Moby album, everybody had that Moby CD. If you were buying CDs at the time that Moby album came out, then everybody owned that Moby album.
Play?
Is
that the one?
Yeah.
I didn't own that Moby album. In fact, I couldn't name a song from that album.
You'd know this. There's one song. It's the Moby song. It's the one Moby song that ever got radio play.
God, that came out in 1999.
Yeah.
That is old.
Pre-millennial.
Can you name the song?
It's called Play, isn't it?
Is there a song called Play on Play? I'm not so sure about that. No,
I don't know.
There is not.
Okay. Look, kids these days, you don't understand. In the old days, if you wanted to get a song that you liked on CD quality without resorting to piracy, which was never CD quality. Yeah, everybody was like, oh yeah, I got CD quality rips. Never CD quality
Nobody
rips.
was downloading lossless in those days.
No.
Which we'll get to on this episode, actually.
But yeah, so you bought the album, you spent $17 on a CD to get the two songs you wanted. And I think it was Honey, but I could be wrong.
That's the first song on the album?
It's either Honey or Run On.
Okay. Maybe I'll do some research. I don't know. Maybe I won't do some research. I don't know how much I care about rediscovering old Moby at this point.
In retrospect, at the time, if you had said, hey, Moby or Beck, I probably would have said Moby. And these days it's all Beck, because Beck got real weird and good. Continued getting weirder as he got older.
Yeah. And Moby just got weird and weird.
Yeah. He played Coachella this year, though, I think. That's weird.
Yeah, I believe that. I would believe that. This all came up because people were, for reasons I don't remember, people were passing around the video for South Side, which is also on Play.
Oh, yeah.
Recently. The one featuring Gwen Stefani, who is a fraught subject all of her own these days.
We don't talk about Gwen Stefani anymore. It turns out there were warning signs all along that the people were like, hey, this woman just seems to be wholesale appropriating Japanese youth culture from certain areas and popularizing it in the U.S. And you're like, oh, weird.
Never meet your heroes, they say.
Yeah. Well,
except us.
Yeah. We're fine. We're cool. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
My voice cracked there. Today's my 51st birthday. Maybe I'm finally hitting puberty.
Man, congratulations. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
51, man. That's not even like, wow, I'm 50 now territory. That's just like, oh, I'm just in this decade now.
Well, the rule is once you turn 50, then you get to, it becomes, instead of just a birthday, it's a celebration of Will. So 50, like last year I did 50 days of Will. You know, a little bit of celebration every day. This year it's 51.
Sure.
My daughter accused me of trying to live to be 365, so it would just always be the Festival of Will. I was like, look, if I live to be 365, everybody will be celebrating me. I don't think that's possible. I got
part of the way into an interesting YouTube video about mammalian aging patterns last night.
Yeah, you learned about those telomeres?
Yeah, but specifically, why do mammals age the way they do? Because the point of the video was like mammals age faster and more different, like sorry, I'm not phrasing this well. They age faster and in a distinct way from other vertebrates is basically, like sharks, turtles, reptiles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The theory was basically that because mammals were prey for dinosaurs and larger animals when they really started to emerge. There were no selection pressures on mutations and degenerative genetic problems that only express themselves later.
Oh,
like because they all died so fast.
All the problems.
So because they all died so fast.
Wow.
There was no way to select out all of the problems that only emerged when the organism lived to an older age.
Grim.
And so, yeah. Anyway, it was some fun, light stuff to think about for your 51st year. I don't know.
In my comparative genetics class in college, we had a conversation about this, and like the nerds all came back, but the professor was like, "Why do you think mammals age so fast?" And it was a thought experiment because like he didn't know. He was like, "We don't know this. Why do you think it is? What are your theories?" And the nerds were talking about telomere length and like all that kind of stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I think that like we've genetically overclocked ourselves. We live fast and hard, and then we burn out at the end." And for 5 glorious minutes, I was the cool kid in the comparative genetics class.
That's definitely the assertion of the Twitter wellness influencer these days that likes to harp on cortisol a lot.
Look, you don't get puffy.
Yeah,
you don't want to get inflammation's bad. You don't want to get puffy. That look at how smooth that guy that wants to live forever that posts all the weird stuff about his and his wife's lives. What's his name? He's Brian Johnson.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's very shiny.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I don't want to live to be 365. It seems like a lot of work and B, miserable.
Brian Johnson is trying desperately not to be prey for dinosaurs.
Yeah. Wow.
Maybe if we had more dinosaurs stalking our billionaires, we would have fewer problems.
Look, these 2 problems could solve. Jurassic Park, they pretty much solve themselves. They work themselves out. Billionaires versus, it's not pirates versus ninjas, it's billionaires versus dinosaurs.
Now you're talking.
Welcome to my. Okay, I'm emailing that to myself. I'm going to pitch that. It'll be coming to like Amazon Prime next year.
Yep.
Wait, no. Amazon Prime won't pay for that because Bezos is that has to be a Netflix or maybe an Apple TV. I don't know.
Yeah, Reed Hastings might go for that.
Yeah. Brad? What are we talking about this week? We got a topic, a capital T topic. Here.
Yeah, sure. A wrap up, a year in review. A retrospective. We've done some of these before. I tried to combing the RSS feed is getting increasingly difficult.
In retrospect, maybe putting clever names on every episode of the podcast instead of descriptive ones was an error.
I tried to. I should have been secretly encoding like episode types within the episode descriptions, but I did not do that. So I could not find. I think we've only done 2 sets of these. The first one was for our
birth years, right?
For our birthdays some years ago, we each ran through the kind of science and tech high points of the years we were born. And then I think after that, we did the years we graduated high school a year or 2 later. But I think that's been 2-3 years now. I could not find another instance of these.
So in my head, it was the year that I went to college because I went on Eternal Summer, which was the impetus. But
maybe that's what it was, actually. I can't remember.
But then this year, this go round, I said, I threw out a couple of dates and thinking, oh, hey, let's talk about the year that Windows XP came out because that'll be fun.
Yes, and like 8 or 10 bullet points into putting together a list of 2002 high points. Yeah, I was like, oh, wait a minute, XP came out in 2001.
Yeah. So anyway, we're talking about 2002. It's it was a transitional year, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like
or maybe it's notable because we can't. I mean, there are some high points in here for sure, but like it's actually kind of nice to look at a year that doesn't have one overwhelming event that kind of overshadows everything else in computing or whatever.
Well, but there's the seeds for a lot of things that touch us every day were planted here, right? Mm-hmm. And so like we said, it's the year after XP came out. It's the year that XP adoption accelerated pretty dramatically. It's the year that like Fortune 500 companies switched from running Windows 95 and Windows NT4 or 98 and NT4 to XP. It's when XP was still good before all the bad stuff happened. And Brad, it's the year Switzerland joined the UN.
Oh, yeah.
Which I didn't realize. Like that seems late to me. I don't know.
That seems very late. But hey, boy, I should not say this out loud.
Uh-oh.
Switzerland has been known for being a bunch of fence sitters for a while.
Wow.
I mean, look.
Hey, this is not the official policy of Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. This is Brad Shoemaker over here. I support our Swiss brethren.
The wartime neutrality is the reputation. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but
they provide guards for the Pope. What else do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to? I think we're going to ping pong around. We're not going to try to do this in chronological order because we'll not get to some of the more important stuff. Actually, should we start with this one? I think this is one of the big ones, right? The venerable, and I don't use that word often because it's overused and we don't use it in the right way, but the venerable, I think the canonical 802.11g Wi-Fi router, the first one that a bazillion people had, launched in 2002, a year before 802.11g, I guess now retronymed to Wi-Fi 2.
Is that Wi-Fi 2?
That would be Wi-Fi 2.
Okay.
Came out. It's the WRT 54G. Folks who don't remember, this is a little blue and gray Linksys router. It had 2 antennas. It's very friendly looking. It was designed with feet that would let it sit on top of your cable modem or DSL modem, I guess. And this was for me. This product was it came out. This is when they started releasing Wi-Fi hardware before the spec was actually ratified.
Yeah, which continues to this day. And I came to realize recently this has been happening with Wi-Fi 7 routers a lot. And I assume it was the case back then as well, that these routers that ship pre-spec finalization often will get software updates that kind of bring them up to spec. That the hardware spec is finished.
Yeah, but the software is not.
Right. Yeah. It's so they are capable of becoming fully compliant down the line.
Usually, sometimes not so much. Sometimes they miss out on some key thing like channel bonding or something like that requires hardware.
God, that stuff is a mess. Not to digress into 2026 technology too much, but Artings, the perennial TV review sites that now covers a ton of stuff. I watched a YouTube video from them a few weeks ago where they were just raking most Wi-Fi 7 devices over the coals because none of them meet the spec requirements. None of them implement the full feature set. Some of them are borderline fraudulent about the features that they claim to support. It's a mess. But anyway,
we should talk about that in the future. But yeah, that router came out. Wi-Fi 802.11b, the first kind of big widespread version of Wi-Fi that had a lot of router support. What wasn't great. It kind of needed a line of sight. It was capped out at 11 megabits shared across all of the devices, which wasn't too bad considering that at that point, cable modems were typically 10 to 100 megabits. At an expensive cable modem was 100 megabits, and your DSL connections were often 1.5 to 5 megabits. So you were in the right realm for sharing internet with multiple people. This was one of the first consumer routers that you could go into Best Buy and you'd see on the shelf at Best Buy, oh, hey, there's a Netgear one, there's this blue Linksys one that everybody has. And it was an inflection point for wireless that also was brought around because around the same time Intel started shipping Wi-Fi chips in all of their laptops.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole episode here, but if there were, this would absolutely qualify as one of those products that changed everything. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at my Amazon order history, and it's amazing how long this remained the router of record because I didn't buy my WRT. I bought a WRT 54GL. I don't know what the L denoted. I'm sure it was just some
long range,
slightly newer model, but I didn't get mine until May 2008.
Yeah.
That's five and a half years after this thing debuted. That was still the go-to router.
Well, G lasted a long time because G was 54 megabits. It was pretty fast, even shared. It was faster than most people's internet connections at the time, which was the important thing. And the range was a little bit better. The other thing that's notable about the 54G is it was the Tomato and DDWRT router.
Yep. Ran Tomato on that thing for years.
So yeah, Linksys had problems, had open source license problems. They had used GPL software. This was based on Linux. They ran Linux under the hood, and they didn't release source code in the way that they were supposed to. And there were legal actions that resulted in them releasing source code. And that source code release is what made Tomato and DDWRT and the third party router software possible. So it's like, hey, this is a product that first that made Wi-Fi, helped make Wi-Fi popular. It had a distinctive industrial design that people recognized and they used for years and years afterwards. And it was about extending, it was a product one of the early products that enabled enthusiast users to extend the capability of their device with the features that like Linksys never would have shipped on $100 consumer router.
Yeah. Yep. And famously such a cultural institution that it was featured in the South Park episode Overlogging.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you remember that.
I didn't know that.
That's the one where the internet goes out nationwide.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
And they have to find the source of the internet, and it's a giant one of these in a cave, like in an underground bunker. There is just a gigantic, literally one of these sitting there.
Oh, that's really funny.
It's pretty dumb.
Yeah. So Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Nascent technology.
Yeah.
In 2003, Intel would release those Centrino laptops and start advertising about how cool wireless networks were.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, everybody bought laptops with Wi-Fi.
Yep. Indeed. Linux. We don't have to belabor this too much. I'm just going to throw it out there, though. March, big month for graybeards.
Yeah.
The 11th of March, the first release of Arch Linux.
Wow.
The 31st of March, the first release of Gen 2.
So it's funny. I don't remember hearing about Arch at all in that time period.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I barely heard about Linux at all at this time. Like, I take that back. We've talked before. Like, I did try to install Slackware in the late 90s. So I think it's more that I wasn't paying attention or it wasn't being discussed outside of Linux circles at that time.
Well, and it also had still has a text installer, which was scary for a lot of people. Gen 2 on the other hand. Wait, you say Gen 2?
It is Gen 2. So I looked this up. Well, it's a Gen 2 is a species of penguin. So that's a pretty well delineated pronunciation.
Okay.
And GIF, as we all know, graphics starts with a hard G.
Okay. Anyway, Gen 2 we talked about a lot. I was covering OSs at Maximum PC at that point.
Wait,
so
covered? Wow.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, everybody had assigned beats. So
well, but I mean, like I get covering something like Debian at this time, but like Arch is crazy and Gen 2 is crazier.
Well, but covering for a magazine was like knowing what was going on, not reviewing and like I wasn't installing and reviewing all these bazillion Linuxes.
You were not compiling kernels with obscure optimization flags enabled.
No, it basically meant I was the Windows guy.
Okay.
Now the weird thing is, so I did install Gen 2 though, because the hey, we're going to compile this specifically for your machine to make it run faster was a big performance claim, and we were interested in performance claims at Maximum PC, and I spent some time with it back then and got it up and running, and then once I got it up and running, I was like, how the hell do you benchmark Linux? This seems impossible, and I think it ended up as a news blurb in the magazine, probably. Yeah.
And like, what are the dominant CPUs at this time? Like Pentium 3 and Athlon XP, roughly, something like that?
Pentium 3 first gen P4s had come out, but it was before they did the DDR memory controller, so you still had to do RAM bus, so that was like a high-end part. Athlon XP wasn't out yet. It was just Athlon by then.
Okay.
So it was like this was the era of the 1 to 1.8 gigahertz Athlons, probably.
Right. Still single core. The point is, compute still pretty limited at the time. So like, building software to run faster on your specific machine might have had actual tangible benefits as opposed to now when we have so much more overhead that it's not kind of a huge deal.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, you should have, those claims continue. Cache still.
Yeah.
Ships kernels with like modern what do you call it, CPU extensions,
newer instruction set. Actually, like they're kind of all moving that way. Like even the next Red Hat is dropping or is only going to work on, I think, V2 x86 64 V2, wow. I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it was a good year for Linux. This was the time that I started looking at Linux as the guy who wrote about OSs for Maximum PC and was like, I need to spend more time with Linux the first time. And I set up a Linux machine in the lab that I could kind of poke at occasionally and didn't really learn how to use until a couple years later when I did spend a whole year using Debian. Should we talk about, here's one. Did you know, Brad, that 2002 was the year the iPad launched?
Go on.
Yep. That's right. The Fujitsu iPad, a lightweight handheld device introduced by Fujitsu in 2002.
Interesting.
Ran Microsoft's WinCE.net operating system, and it was wireless to connect with company infrastructure
Okay.
It looked like a candy bar phone, basically.
Okay. iPad came out in 2010, right? I believe
2010. Yeah, March of 2010.
So what is the? Well, it's Apple. Oh, the Wikipedia actually had. What I was going to say is how long does a trademark last? Like what happened that only 8 years later another. But it is Apple. If they want the name iPad, they're probably going to get the name iPad.
Well, so the way it worked was Apple announced the iPad, Fujitsu sued them, and then Apple wrote them a big giant check.
Oh, wow. They did not do their due diligence? Interesting. Yeah, okay, yes.
Actually, they may not have even gotten to the point that they sued them. They may have just written them the check.
Trademark analysts estimate that Apple paid Fujitsu over $4 million.
That seems pretty cheap in retrospect.
For the trademark rights. So
just to be clear, the styling on this is lowercase I, capital P, capital A, capital D. Not that. I never actually saw one of these. I just thought it was funny because it came up in the list of notable hardware from this time period.
That is such a 2002 looking device.
Yeah, it looks. We should talk about candy bar phones because that was the dominant shape of a phone at that period of time.
Maybe talk about some mobile devices here. I'm going to sidebar real quick. I go real back and forth on this wave of, there's a real intense wave of turn of the century computing and like UI design nostalgia going on right now. I don't know if you're familiar.
I'm with. Yeah, I know.
Do the words Frutiger Arrow mean anything to you?
I don't know what Frutiger Arrow is. I was looking at the utopian. What is it then? Oh, it's that. Okay.
It is the design. It basically is a mishmash of the Windows XP, like Green Hills wallpaper and what
Encarta
and what iTunes and like frosted glass UI and like that really like uplifting, glossy, sleek, like Y2K is another name for it. It's a, what do you call it? A retronym. It's like it is a label that young people who were kind of not alive at this time have come up with to describe this aspirational aesthetic of the turn of the century that they wish was around. Anyway, this phone reminds me of that. Like looking at this phone, like look at the number.
You're not wrong.
Like the buttons are all like, they look like they're Aqua from OS 10. Like they look like little bubbles of like clear liquid and stuff. And it's all rounded and glossy and like, stuff from the like 99 to 03-ish era has got a real look to it.
Well, also, instead of having the normal 12-digit keypad, it has what looks like a 25-digit keypad. Maybe it's got four columns instead of 3.
Yeah, I zoomed in. Those are like numeric operators, like division, multiplication.
Oh, wild.
There's a decimal, some other stuff, but yeah. Anyway, I'm torn on the aesthetic question there. Like I'm not sure I love XP design and that kind of like Vista design at this point, but whatever. Taste is entirely subjective. I
like the frosted glass. I like the I don't mind the frosted. I like that better than clear warped glass, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that the credit has gone to Arrow, which was the name of Microsoft's design language around Vista, and not Aqua, which was like Aqua in OS 10 predates Arrow by like 5 or 6 years.
Wait, wasn't Arrow XP?
No, I'm pretty sure Arrow is Vista.
Windows Arrow was Vista and Windows 7.
Because remember, Vista was the one, I'm sure this was down to like increasing 3D graphics support.
It was, yeah.
But, Vista was the one where all the transparency and frosted glass effects started coming in.
Right.
I don't know if XP has a design name.
XP added colors instead of gray. I don't remember what they absolutely had a name for it. I do not remember what it was. Luna. Visual Style.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. That might, I don't know, maybe this sounds a little amorphous, or this might be hard to organize, but I feel like that might almost be a whole episode of...
Oh, the evolution of Windows design language?
Or not even just Windows, but just kind of general UI design trends and the way they get categorized and stuff. Maybe if we can think of a way to kind of lay that out in a way that makes a little more sense to talk about, maybe
we could just rank them. All the design. My daughter had a request for a ranking of episode, by the way.
Interesting. What, say again?
My daughter had a request for a ranking of episode the other day.
Interesting. Wait, does she listen?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Dodged a bullet there.
The thought of anybody around like under 18 listening to this strikes terror into my heart. I don't want to be a boomer.
Oh, well, Brad, I got bad news for you, buddy.
Yeah.
No, she wanted a ranking of curses. Like curse words.
Oh,
because she was like, a lot of good swears that kids my age don't know.
That might be a tough fit for a tech podcast, but I guess we can figure it out.
I mean, we have to apply context for when you would use this. This is like when you it's 3:00 in the morning and your hard drive bombed out and you just realize that your backups are no good. What's the appropriate swear for that scenario?
I would absolutely rank like graphical UI design trends, but I don't know how easy that is without a visual aid.
I mean, we would have to do some big time show notes, probably off of the like linked off. Like, actually, the thing to do is to make a big Google Doc and just put all the images in there and then share them. Anyway, but I'm partial to Luna. I liked the Arrow stuff. Okay, the problem with the Arrow stuff originally was the performance on it, but like I don't miss the Encarta style visual design of the late 90s, the kind of chaotic mess.
Yeah, I that is exactly what those fans of that stuff are looking back fondly on. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the weird organic, like graphics heavy.
I don't
software
need
of that time.
The Windows Media Player skin with the guy's head.
Yes, that's exactly the type of stuff they are super into, and that is super not for me. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm living that simple Bauhaus life these days. Hey, okay. Well, while we're talking about phones, the Handspring Trio.
Oh yeah, maybe we should just do all the phone stuff here that we've got.
Let's do this. Can be phone section. So the main market, I looked up market sales data that I could find, and according to like not MPD, God, I can't remember the name of the agency, but anyway, the candy bar style smartphones were the big sellers. The Nokia 33 whatever series, depending on the vendor, was like a 3-inch tall candy bar cell phone. They were all GPRS or 3G, and the amazing thing about them is that they had some additional features. But the main thing I remember about that era phone is that like my Nokia and my Sony Ericsson phones lasted for like 6 days on battery. Like the battery was good for 6 or 7, 5 to 7 days, depending on the phone.
Were those candy bars?
Those are candy bars, yeah.
I never had a candy bar. I only had flip phones before smartphones came along.
Well, so the thing about the candy bar phones was they were called that because they didn't open. There was no like moving parts.
Right. Yeah.
You would hit a key combination to kind of unlock the buttons when it was in your pocket, so you didn't accidentally. This is where the origin of ass dialing people started. Is you put the phone in your back pocket, you sit down on it, and then it would dial your number 3 contact, and that person would get a call at 3:00 in the morning, think you were calling them for like sexual favors to go out or something. And it turns out they just got to hear the inside of your pants pocket for 10 minutes. But the Trio, the Handspring Trio, was a Palm device. It was a Palm OS device. So this was a smartphone with a physical keyboard like a BlackBerry, that ran Palm OS just like your Palm Pilot. And this was kind of Palm coming back. You know, they had done PDA stuff in the late 90s and early 2000s, and then kind of faded away for a couple of years. And this was the return with the Handspring Trio, which was, like I said, it integrated a Palm Pilot, a phone, and well, I mean, those are the two things. That was all it did.
Yeah. Also the year of the Danger Hip Top.
Yeah.
Which I've never really known as the Danger Hip Top, or I may have heard that phrase at some point, but I always knew this device as the T-Mobile Sidekick.
So in Europe, they called it the Danger Hip Top. In the UK, in the US, the only company that had access to it, that had paid to get access to it, was T-Mobile.
Okay.
And this was their intro into youth culture because you could do the AIM and the MSN on it.
Yes, this had literal instant messaging on it and also a big fat keyboard. Speaking of devices with but it had a cool flip up screen. It like kind of
spun.
It looked like a candy bar phone until you flipped the screen up and then you could access the keyboard underneath.
It was if I recall, it was like you could hold it in one hand and flip the screen with your thumb so that the screen would like whip around because it pivoted. Like the pivot for the screen wasn't like a clamshell like you'd expect. It spun on a pivot that was at the I guess depending on which way you're looking at it, the space between the keyboard and the screen.
Yeah, I don't know
probably where it was.
I don't know if it was spring loaded exactly, but it definitely had a little bit of like kind of an aggressive flip out kind of snap to it.
There was definitely a part where there was a point where once you got it past that point, it would keep going on its own in a way that was very satisfying.
These were real big in the GameSpot office.
Yeah, you guys were the only people I ever knew that had them.
Yeah, that's the only reason I really know what this is. I never had one, but I mean, not just as a goof because it was fun to be able to IM on your phone. Like these things, I started at GameSpot in January of 2003. Like these things were a big deal for ferrying information back to people, like say at E3.
Oh yeah,
like somebody is at the press conference. I mean, this is obviously way pre-streaming press conferences online. Somebody's at the press conference, you like furiously thumb typing on this thing, sending news back to somebody in the E3 booth who is writing it up and posting it straight into the CMS. Like We had a real scrappy but efficient pipeline for getting information onto the website as fast as possible.
It was funny, that kind of stuff, that like it was, they completely got the, hey, people are going to use these things to do a lot of text messaging, or messaging with text, not necessarily text messaging. And then they completely missed all of the other stuff surrounding it, because it like didn't have a music player or any of that stuff. And that stuff kind of didn't, those were all separate devices at this time, like your cell phone and your music player. If you had like an MP3 player, it was either a little flash based thing or an iPod or some weird thing from China or whatever.
Well, that was, that was the legendary Steve Jobs iPhone unveil. Remember? Today we're announcing 3 products. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, a lot of interesting stuff going on with mobile phones at this time.
Yeah, it was a weird time for mobile phones. Do you want to talk about music piracy now?
Sure.
That seems like a good transition for this. We can talk about what was going on with how media worked back then. This was the year that Napster shut down.
Yeah. Or I think they took the service down in 2001, but they declared bankruptcy in 2002.
Well, and this was during the time period when the music labels were starting to go after people who downloaded music. I don't think that had actually started yet. I think they just threatened to do it. But it was Napster at that period of time. Napster was a place where you could steal MP3s explicitly. That was like 99% of the use. And what happened when the music industry got Napster to shut down, basically, is that a bunch of similar networks that were not centralized in the same way that Napster was, and thus were impossible to shut down, spun up, like Kazaa and
Gnutella.
Gnutella and a couple others. Those were the Kazaa and Gnutella were the 2 big ones. And then the music piracy never stopped. This was the beginning of the end for the, hey, if I want to listen to music, I have to buy a $17 CD, because it wasn't too long after this that Apple started selling tracks for 99 cents each on the iTunes store. But yeah, the Napster shutdown, some people were, this was a weird time for music stuff, because like I had a friend who would a couple times a year have people over to his house, and everybody'd bring hard drives, and you'd just all swap everybody's music. Like you'd bring, he had requirements. He was very much on the, hey, don't bring your garbage 96 kilobit MP3s. I want, only bring good curated files. The tags are good, all that kind of stuff. And then you just plug in your hard drive into one central computer, and he'd drag everybody's stuff into different folders, and you'd have some beers and hang out with some people. But it was a weird way to experience music, I guess.
Also a fun stereotype from this era. I don't think I didn't really experience this that I recall, but the stereotype of downloading songs from these services that were extremely mislabeled, like the wrong band.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
There's like this whole phenomenon of people realizing years later that some of their favorite songs are a totally different band than they thought.
Yeah, what was it? People would also do like the music labels were trying to fight piracy by putting music that they thought people would hate in, like I want to say it was a Madonna track that they relabeled, and they put some polka or like
great
Pat Boone or something up on. I can't remember.
That was a really stupid time.
It was an extremely, extremely stupid time. So yeah, but this set the stage for both the music services. I feel like listen.com started around this time. I didn't put on the list. But listen.com came out of, I think, Real Networks. And the player started in 2000. I guess it started later. It was 2003. Rhapsody.
Okay. Rhapsody is what Apple bought and turned to iTunes, isn't it?
No.
Or am I thinking of something else?
No, I don't think they turned anything into iTunes. I think it was always.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. You're thinking about Music Match Jukebox, I think.
No, I'm 100% right.
Oh, really? They bought Rhapsody?
Well, hang on. Oh no, I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm not right. I just did a Control F on the Wikipedia page for iTunes and.
Oh yeah, it was a competitor.
Sorry. Sound Jam MP. I'm sorry. Sound Jam MP, released by Cassidy and Green in 1999, was renamed iTunes when Apple purchased it the next year.
Interesting.
Nobody's ever heard of Sound Jam MP.
No. So Rhapsody was a legal streaming service that was bought by Listen.com in 2001 and became Listen.com eventually, and then was bought by Real Music. That was like a place you could pay $10 a month and you got access to a whole big giant library of music. Now, it wasn't any of the big label music that you wanted. I mean, it was a little bit of that, but it was a lot of like indie artists and stuff like that. It was kind of like a proto Bandcamp type situation, but it was a pay once and you get access to it based on listens and stuff like that.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about music piracy here. This feels like around the time that CDRs were becoming really commodified.
This was when you could go to your big box store and get a stack of like a spindle of CDs with no jewel cases for like $1 a disc or something. And
the drives were becoming much more affordable and widespread, and there were more models. Like I remember CDRs being around as early as like 98-ish, 99.
Yeah, but this was prime. Hey, do you want to, let me just burn that for you.
Right. Like I think I knew about this stuff earlier because CDRs were showing up in, let's say, circles that enjoyed playing PlayStation games a lot, or Saturn games. But then later, this feels like around the time that just kind of everybody was getting a CDR and burning CDs.
Yeah, it was also, I'm trying to think, it was also around the time that you started seeing music CD players that could play discs full of MP3s if they were formatted right.
Yep.
And that was like, that led to the question when you were like, hey, I just got that new blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, can I, do you want me to make you a copy of it? And you'd be like, oh yeah, sure. And you'd have to ask the question. Do you want MP3s? Do you want the CD-ROM? Do you want to burn like CD audio? What? I had to replace the head unit in my car because it didn't work right with CDRs and it annoyed me at a really high level.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it. Real quick, why don't we just mention, since we talked about Apple, the iMac G4 came out in January.
Yeah.
Which was it was only the second model of iMac. I mean, everybody remembers the original, like teal. What is the name of that teal? I can't remember.
Candy. They called him Candy.
There's
a blue?
Yeah, there's a name for that blue that escapes me right now. Anyway.
They did a whole rainbow of them for the educational market.
Everybody remembers the CRT original iMac, but this was the second iMac, the first one to use an LCD. And I always thought that thing had a cool swivel on it. I think I might have seen one in person once. It's the one that has the giant, heavy, fat...
big.
I guess that's where the
dome.
That's where the computer is in the big dome base looking thing, and then the LCD is on this like big articulating metal arm.
It's got like two joints. Yeah.
I mean, talk about some Frutiger Aero ass Y2K design. That thing is right there.
I think that one's less bad than the original iMacs.
I like that one. I think that one is a cool design.
I think it's cool. Yeah. There was one at the flea market a few months ago.
Oh. Did I see that? Maybe I saw that. I don't know.
Anyway. It was the first one we went to this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But those show up more often than you'd think. That was like the front reception computer at every startup in San Francisco, every big company in San Francisco for a really long time. Also that year,
this is cool. I'm sorry to.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that YouTube channel Action Retro.
Yeah.
It's a dude that just does a lot of old computer stuff. I just found a video of him taking an iMac G4 chassis and putting an M4. Like I don't know what he gutted. Probably a Mac Mini, I guess, is what he crammed in there. But that's kind of a neat idea.
That's fun.
Anyway.
This was also the year that Apple did their first iPod Rev. So the original iPod had come out a couple years before. It had a mechanical touch wheel. So this is the first time that they did a capacitive touch wheel on the iPad.
Oh, you mean the original one had a mechanical?
The original one had a mechanical wheel. This one I think was still FireWire. It still had the four kind of buttons around the edge of the wheel. So the center of the wheel was clicky, but the wheel wasn't on a rocker like the later models were. And it was replacing the moving part basically with a capacitive touch surface, which was, I think, the first time that came up on an Apple device.
Big things coming for capacitive touch down the line.
It turns out the two things that the LCD screens and the capacitive touch, both really important for the future of Apple.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about some game stuff?
Sure.
Hey, DirectX 9 launched.
Oh, okay. That was a big one.
That was, I would argue that's the beginning of like modern gaming.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, you could make a case for 8 as well, but
maybe for 8, but 8 had this is what unified the shader languages more, and you ended up with something that was much more cohesive across hardware platforms.
Like DX9 is the Half-Life 2 one to me, or that's the one that enabled Half-Life 2. And in fact, like DX9 was around forever, like as I recall. Well, not forever. I think DX10 launched with Vista, right? Wasn't that the big to-do or kerfuffle was that Vista, right. They made DirectX 10 Vista exclusive, and a lot of people got mad that they had to upgrade to the shitty new Windows to play new games.
Well, most of the games that you had to upgrade to the shitty new Windows to, I guess Crysis required DX10.
I want to say there was a Halo PC port that used DX10, and they were kind of locking that behind Vista, if I'm not mistaken.
So I was going to say, all of those games for Windows Lives, they never made, all those games for Windows games, they never made a Windows XP port of games for Windows. So in order to play Fallout 3, Shadowrun, or Shadowgate, all of those kind of games, that Halo, was it Halo 1 or Halo 2?
1. 2 never came to PC.
Yeah, so the Halo 1,
that I recall.
The Halo 1 port, all of that stuff, they tied behind the games for Windows APIs.
Yeah,
so you could do, like, that was their way of pushing you forward.
Yeah, so all that to say, DX9 was not quite as long lived as I guess maybe I should modify that statement and say DX9 was like supported for a very long time. Like games continued to come out using DX9 for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still like we've seen DX9 games released as recently as probably 8 or 9 years ago in like weird niche spaces. So
right,
yeah.
And like that NVIDIA Remix tool is geared toward in fact DX9 is the API that hooks into.
Yeah, so it's for games from this era.
Right.
Let's see what else we. This is here. This might be the big thing this year is that online gaming came to, like for real,
consoles. Yeah,
we'd had online games before on a handful of consoles, but they were pretty limited. And this was the first time there was a real, like, system level kind of push with Xbox Live.
Yeah, I was surprised I could even find a date for the PlayStation 2 online functionality, because the whole deal with that thing was that it was up to every game's developer to implement the online separately. But I don't even know. I never really did much of anything online with PS2 unless I had to like review a game that I needed to try it for or something, because it was such a pain in the ass having to set it up separately on every game. So I don't remember what, if anything, even existed at the PS2 system level for the online functionality.
There wasn't, as I recall. So
I don't think there really, I don't think there was much of anything.
You got an IP address at the system level, I think.
No, I'm pretty sure I remember having to punch in like subnet masks and shit like that into games.
Tony Hawk or something.
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that. Weirdly, so I think this might have come out earlier in Japan, and also there were a bunch of like USB modems in Japan that came out for the PS2, made by different companies. There was one, oh gosh, I don't know if I can find it now.
PS2 didn't have Ethernet, right?
Not until, so the hard drive add-on that came out alongside Final Fantasy XI that had a full fat 3.5-inch hard drive in it also had an Ethernet port. And then later, do you remember the wafer thin PS2 Slim? That did have.
That's the one Ethernet. I bought was the Slim.
That one did have Ethernet stock, but the original one did not. I have got to find the name of that USB modem. I was looking at it last night, and it is the most delightful product name.
So while you're doing that, while you're looking for that, I remember I found it.
I'm sorry. Here it is. Okay, in November 2000, the Sun Corporation, and that's a Japanese Sun Corporation, not Sun Microsystems, released the. Okay, actually, I'm not sure which order this is to be read in. It's either it is either the Enjoy Magic, one word, Online Station, one word, or the Online Station, one word, Enjoy Magic, one word.
I think both work. I'll allow either of those. That's a pretty good name.
Enjoy Magic.
Enjoy Magic. So I remember the first time I saw a multiplayer game running on the console, I want to say Next Gen Magazine had gotten Tony Hawk. Which Tony Hawk had the airport level? Was it 4?
Gosh, I am not the internet's foremost expert on Tony Hawk levels at all.
Well, I think it was 4. It was either 3 or 4.
It probably was 4 by this time, if I had to guess. Because wasn't 3 a PS1 game?
2 I played on Dreamcast.
Ask me anything about the Tony Hawk series.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 came out in 2002, so it's got to be that one.
Okay, so yeah, they'd gotten Tony Hawk 4, and they had the Ethernet adapter, and they plugged in their PlayStation, and they needed help getting it connected to the Wi-Fi or to the network, because you had to go in and manually put in the IP address and stuff like that. It didn't work with DHCP for whatever, probably for the beta version they had or something. But we fired that up and they were playing Tony Hawk on the internet with like full lag, like 90s style first person shooter lag where people are zooping around like crazy. It was really wild. And then a couple months later, Xbox Live came out and like all of a sudden like supported voice and all sorts of crazy stuff that people had never really seen on the consoles before.
Yes. Now that was a proper, I mean, we've talked about it before, but that was a proper system level online implementation as it should be.
Yeah. That's another one of those candidates for, hey, this technology changed everything.
Set up once, we did one of those episodes on the 360, which I think was the full realization of this idea.
Yeah, that's probably right.
But yes, this was the first one to do it, and that was a big deal.
And like being able to, I remember playing golf and Halo 2 and all sorts. I mean, Halo 2 is much later, I guess, but all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. You want to do a movie one? I have flagged a movie thing from this year.
Yeah, this was the great era of ragdolls.
Let me try this. Let me try this framing on for size. May 16th, Attack of the Clones came out.
Yeah.
December 18th, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers came out.
Okay.
I've kind of like loosely described this as the year that digital cinema really got going, both in projection and in like visual effects and filmmaking.
Was Lord of the Rings shot digitally?
No. But that's why I'm very broadly describing this as Attack of the Clones was the first movie shot in digital.
Yeah.
Or at least the first major commercial one. Like there might be some like very obscure example, but like famously they were using like beta versions of Sony HD cameras on that movie that had not even been finalized yet. No, Lord of the Rings all shot on film, but
and they didn't shoot Phantom Menace digitally. Some of that was shot.
There's like one scene, and I want to say it's the scene of Obi-Wan talking to Yoda at the very end of Phantom Menace was the one that was shot digitally. Maybe.
Weird. Okay.
I could be wrong, but 99% of Phantom Menace is shot on 35 millimeter. But
okay.
So, like I said, I'm casting a very wide net here. But so, Attack of the Clones shot digitally, and also that might be the first movie I ever saw projected digitally.
I saw that at the Twin behind Stonestown, and it was absolutely not projected digitally there.
So I saw it. I saw the midnight showing at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood.
Wow!
And I believe that was on film, but then I saw it again that night at the theater whatever the theater across the street from the Chinese Theater is.
You must really love sand.
It was an experience.
How were you feeling after that first one about the fact that you already bought tickets to a second showing?
Very torn.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, very mixed on. I mean, I went ahead and saw it again that night, but it was like enthusiasm. Whatever. We don't need to get into this. Did
people hold on? I'm curious because I went to the Twin at behind Stonestown, which is like an old, I think, United Artists Theater. So it's like if you've been to one of those, you know it because the designs were all the same across the entire country. Everyone I've been to was the same. And when I was in line for that midnight showing, there were a bunch of people in like Jedi and Sith robes. People were like, there were unlike any of the other Star Wars movie screenings I've ever been to, there were people in costume and like ready to go. Like they were there for it. They were in for it. And by the time they got to the Count Dooku Yoda fight at the end, people were like cackling and actively heckling the movie.
That theater went absolutely wild when he pulled out that lightsaber and started flipping around. And I think like in an earnest way. I don't think they were necessarily mocking it.
There was a guy in full Jedi robes that got up and walked out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
My recollection is the response to that scene in the Chinese Theater was one of extreme jubilation.
Okay. I was into it. I still think look, for me, this era of movies is kind of the dark period of digital filmmaking where we had technology to do a bunch of stuff that was never before possible, but not in the kind of invisible way that it is now when people do digital touch-ups on whether it's shot on film or digital or whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think about like the abysmal ragdoll packages that somebody sold to they used it in the Lord of the Rings movies. They used it in the Harry Potter movies. They used it in Star Wars, where you just had like bad late 90s era ragdolling in every scene that a human being could possibly ragdoll.
Sure.
And that to me is like the defining characteristic of that era. I hadn't thought about it being because I saw Lord of the Rings. I saw the Two Towers digitally projected, and that was probably one, if not the first one of the first movies. That's not true. I think I got invited to a Phantom Menace digital screening when I think about it. when they had that projector set up at the AMC. So they said
was that like a special tech demo that Lucasfilm was doing?
Yeah, Lucasfilm set up in 2000, maybe like mid 2000.
Oh, this was after the movie had been out for a while.
This was late in the run, if not after the run.
Okay.
They installed a digital projector at the AMC Van Ness in San Francisco for like a month. And
I think I remember reading about that. Yeah, I think I remember news stories about that, actually.
I think I could be wrong, but anyway.
Oh, that was an interesting time just for projection, like all the other filmmaking stuff aside. Like, I don't know if you remember, that's around the time that Roger Ebert got really behind this traditional film projection technique. If there's a name for it, I'd have to go look it up. Like, he wrote multiple articles about it. He was so jazzed about it. It was film projection, but it was mechanically stabilized. Like, there was some...
Oh.
I don't know. I have never seen the rig. I have no idea how they were doing it, but I have to imagine it was employing principles similar to like Steadicam and stuff like that, where the projector in the theater was mechanically stabilized to give you like zero jitter on the projection. Like it was like perfectly stable. And I think that film system also went up to 48 FPS, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway.
Well, that's a mistake. We all know that now.
There were all kinds of weird, like evolutionary dead ends going on with film projection at that time before everything just kind of ended up at digital, because he was not a big digital guy. But anyway.
I mean, look. Looking back on that stuff now, a lot of that digital from that period was kind of rough.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like
it was
Attack of the Clones,
dim or
like famously that footage is 1080p. Like the source raw footage they shot was 1080p for that movie, and also like that's setting aside that like cinematographers did not know and makeup artists and stuff didn't know what to do with the new digital capture yet. So like the skin tones look super weird and people's makeup is very obvious and blah. Anyway, it was a bumpy time, but like Lucas was always more about like pushing things forward as fast as possible, even if it was kind of weird and janky, than like trying to make it perfect. So,
well, and it was also the beginning of the digital actors, right? So the digital performers.
Yes. So that was the other reason. That's probably the biggest reason I looped Two Towers in here. So it's like Clones is like digital projection and shot on digital cameras. Two Towers, I mean, obviously, like Jar Jar is the big breakout. Oh, here's the first full digital character, but like, I feel like Gollum in Two Towers is the first one where you heard people going like, this character could win an Oscar. Like, this performance is like crazy.
Yeah, it was the first time it was good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like I remember the conversation about digital Yoda versus puppet. Empire Strikes Back Yoda versus Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones Yoda is. The conversation was Frank Oz being like, oh, look, I see all the errors in my puppetry that these digital guys have brought forward and it bums me out. But also it doesn't have the same gremlin vibe as Puppet Yoda from Empire, right? I feel like there was a lot of actors learning how to talk to tennis balls, and we hadn't gotten to the point where people were putting the eyeline thing on, but let the performer stay in the scene so that they could, like, the other actors had something to work against.
This is still like years before Ian McKellen weeping on the set at having to act against nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it wasn't that far before that, was it?
I'm pretty sure that was on The Hobbit. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that infamous incident was from The Hobbit, which is years after this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But anyway, like there was a lot going on in filmmaking, film production, film projection. Like the move to digital filmmaking was like obviously had begun years earlier, but was like seriously underway at this point.
Yeah. Let's see. A couple of digital culture things, I guess, is what I would put these under. This was the era of IM, of instant messaging. AIM and ICQ and MSN Messenger, and I feel like there was at least one other that I'm not remembering.
Oh, there were Yahoo Messenger.
Oh yeah, nobody used Yahoo Messenger though.
I had accounts on all of them because I knew like in every case I knew like one or two people that only used MSN or only used Yahoo.
This was before Google Chat started, but they came to that shortly after this. It was a weird time for how, because like you either had 5 different clients open because none of them were cross compatible with each other, or you used some kind of bootleg third party client like Trillion or Pigeon or one of those.
Both. I had used Trillion and then moved to Pigeon later.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird time for that. The other thing is blogs. This was the era of the blog. Like this was, hey, you can publish stuff online for pretty inexpensively to free. Blogger had been around for a few years. Movable Type released in 2001. And both of those made it easy for you to either pay somebody $5 a month to host a blog or self-host on a time slice server or something like that, or host it in your bedroom like I did. That was an insane thing to do in retrospect. But it kind of, when WordPress released the next year, that became the face of corporate, everything from corporate websites to like personal blogs to photo, like so many businesses were built on WordPress at that time. It was kind of wild.
Yeah. And also, again, to go back to the GameSpot subject, we're only a year or 2 or 3 out from like the blog, quote unquote, becoming like the maybe, if not the journalistic outlet of record online, like the hot new kind of format. I
mean, this was Gawker was starting at this time period.
That's exactly what I mean. Like, or, it's Kotaku in our case, where it's like, oh, we do this very traditional, like somewhat stuffy, formal style of news coverage. And then like, here come these fucking rebellious upstart bloggers just writing about whatever they want and talking all this shit. And it's like, what is happening?
This is a weird time.
Real quick, I'm just going to touch on, since you mentioned IM again here, and the T-Mobile Sidekick / Danger Hip Top was a big IM device. I did not know that Andy Rubin was a co-founder of Danger. Andy Rubin, who created Android.
Yep. He went from Danger to Google to start Android and then got bought by Google.
Yeah. Yeah. So that dude has had a profound effect on the mobile industry.
A couple other technology hits. This was the year that Dyson introduced their bagless vacuum. So this is the Cyclone thing that has become every Dyson stick vacuum ever. And prior to that, most vacuums had some sort of bag / filter separator that was a friggin' nightmare to clean. Now, look, the cyclonic vacuums have their own unique set of problems.
So does Mr. Dyson, but that's a separate subject.
Problematic in multiple levels, I think. Yeah. It was also the year that the first Roomba came out. So this was the, hey, you can vacuum new and good with one, and the other one is just don't even bother, the machine will do it. And the promise of that was not like we got one of those and it was underwhelming for multiple levels, despite us living in a hardwood floor loft with very little furniture. It was like basically prime use case for it. But yeah, it was like a little robot sweeper. It was kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the beginning of household robotics, though, I guess, which is like that to me marks the beginning of, hey, you can get a robot that will do a thing less good than you can do it, but then you don't have to fool with it.
Yeah. I think all the rest of these are computing things.
Yeah, I think so.
CPUs. We started to touch on this earlier, but you've written down some CPU stuff here.
Yeah, so this was the year we hit 2 gigahertz. The second gen NetBurst P4 chips, Northwood.
I guess you're right. I'm thinking back. What was I running at that time? Yeah, sure.
You were probably on a Thunderbird or something. Would be my guess.
I was. Maybe I'll get to that. I won a Thunderbird around this time at a raffle, or I'll just say it now. Like AMD, I was still living in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time, and AMD came through town and did some kind of event.
And you went to it?
Oh yeah, and it was like there were a lot of people. I mean, this is really in the thick of the Quake 3, like the Unreal Tournament, like PC competitive first-person shooters are huge at this point, and there were a lot of people at that thing, and I don't remember anything about what the event was other than I remember being in the middle of a big crowd, and they had some kind of raffle at the end, and I won a 1.2 gigahertz Athlon Thunderbird.
That's pretty good.
Which was pretty exciting because I had like a much slower Duron at the time, and I just threw it right in that motherboard. And
so you didn't have to buy a motherboard or a new RAM or anything. Oh, that's nice.
I was a huge AMD guy at that point already, so I just swapped my overclocked Duron out with a better Thunderbird, and that was cool.
So the Northwood second gen NetBurst P4 chips, the first gen were. The theory, and I don't know if this is true, I've never actually talked to anybody in Intel about it, but the speculation at the time was that the first gen they had rushed out because they got beaten to 1 gigahertz by AMD. And so they wanted to have the bigger number, but the performance was actively kind of terrible on them at the time.
Weren't they super hard to cool also?
They were hot. They had this really deep pipeline. It was a completely new architecture. The Intel lawyers, the Wikipedia article, I don't know if this is true, but the Wikipedia article said that the lawyers wouldn't let them call these Pentium 3s because it was such a wildly different architecture.
Huh.
And it was designed to run real fast. Like the deep pipelines really only worked if you were above a certain clock speed, because otherwise the cache misses, the misses on the pre-computes and stuff like that would end up with a bunch of wasted cycles. So you needed way more cycles running so that you could get the predictions to hit and stuff like that. So they hit 2 gigahertz and quickly kind of blew past there. But also this is when they introduced hyperthreading.
Oh,
so this was the beginning of, hey, you have 2 threads on one CPU, which, because these were all single core CPUs at the time, meant you had 2 threads, which was novel and exciting.
Yeah. What is AMD's name for hyperthreading? Because that's an Intel name.
I think they just call it hyperthreading.
No, that's a specific Intel.
Oh, really?
Simultaneous multi-threading, SMT is what AMD calls it.
God. I mean, that's what hyperthreading is too, I guess, technically.
Yeah, it's just a brand. The reason I asked, though, is that Intel has dropped hyperthreading. I assume you know.
Yeah, the Core series chips.
Arrow Lake and Lunar Lake shipped without hyperthreading, but they're bringing it back.
Oh, really?
The new CEO of Intel, like a year ago or something, in some statement, said yeah, he said, I just looked that up this morning. He said it was a mistake, that it has put them at a competitive disadvantage to drop hyperthreading, and that they are going to bring it back. It does not sound like, from rumors, that it will make it back in time for Nova Lake.
It's interesting because at that time it was a real mixed bag, performance wise. Like some workloads really benefited from it.
Yeah, I think that's always been the case. I mean, by nature of how it works, that is just inherent to it.
Well, I think the OS schedulers got better about knowing about like the conversation between the OS scheduler and the chip scheduler got better. The thread scheduler on the chip got better at like determining when it should be used and when it shouldn't. But yeah, anyway, I think it's not noteworthy because, hey, it's kind of the beginning of the multi-threaded era with an asterisk, I guess.
Oh, I guess that was before the multi-core era. So I didn't.
So
you were getting 2 threads when you only had 1 core. So that was more meaningful at that time.
Well, there was multi-core prior to that, but you were typically talking about like expensive. Well, in the Socket 7 days, you could just put multiple Socket 7 chips on a board and it would work.
I mean, that's
at this time period, you had to buy workstation machines to get a board with 2 sockets, and they were usually, you're gonna laugh, but like those boards were phenomenally expensive. They were like $300 to get a dual Xeon board.
Yep.
And you were probably buying 2 really expensive $800 CPUs to populate them. But yeah, it was a weird time.
Yeah. First Firefox release.
Yeah. Turns out
in 2002.
I don't know what version they're on now. I think I'm on like 50 something, maybe.
Yeah. Versioning
150.0.3.
Versioning got kind of annoying when it became a competitive thing. Like, I mean, I think it's lightly competitive. I'm not sure anybody takes it that seriously, but like,
not anymore. They did for a while though.
But also, this is a well-known phenomenon. Like the Xbox 360 name exists because the PlayStation 3 was launching, and they wanted their number to sound big too. So like, it is kind of a thing, But like when I think Chrome might be at fault for this. Like the Chrome build number is large, and other people, it feels like, started trying to move to a different versioning scheme in order to match that. I don't know. It's all dumb.
So when Firefox came out, Internet Explorer was the predominant browser.
Yeah. Yes.
Netflix Navigator had kind of
Netscape.
Sorry, what did I say?
You said Netflix Navigator.
Oh yeah, Netscape Navigator. Jesus. Kind of fell out of vogue. They hadn't been updating it. The company maybe even was gone by this point. And Firefox rose from the ashes of that.
Yes. Netscape kind of defeated itself, really fell apart of their own accord.
Some people would argue that there was an anti-competitive component to Netflix's collapse.
Yeah, but I was reading about the history of this recently because, in fact, this was going around in programmer circles. I think somebody who writes a pretty popular programming blog did a piece on this. That was it. Navigator 4, Netscape Navigator 4, I think was the one where they famously did clean sheet of paper, full redesign from the ground up, whole new code base. And this blog post that was getting passed around was a pretty well argued cautionary tale for why you should never ever do that.
Oh,
and because when it finally came, it was enormously behind schedule and super buggy and missing features and just a real mess.
Yeah,
they basically missed the boat. I mean, yes, obviously Microsoft pulled some shit with Internet Explorer, but also Netscape was basically sitting on their hands for like 2 years or something trying to get this whole new browser out when they should have just iterated on what they had.
Yeah. I mean, look, this was a time when the coding standards and the way we develop software was still being developed. This was before, I feel like SVN came out around this time, right? This was when like code management became a technology.
Yeah, I could see that.
So yeah, it was I don't know. It feels like a big time.
Yeah. I've only got two others here real quick that we'll get to. They're both examples to me of things that were defined or like, proposed way earlier than I realized until I looked this up, because I feel like they're things I think of as like something that has come about very recently. One of them is that the Matroska project was launched in December of 2002.
That's wild, because I would have assumed that came much later. This was before video was like a going thing on computers for the most part.
Or well, it was around, but it was very early. Like, you were mostly seeing like .mpeg files and .avi.
Well, and like it was before desktop video editing on like normal computers was a real thing. You had to have like I guess we didn't have MPEG-2 accelerator encode cards at this point, but it was.
Oh, no.
I mean, if you were working in a professional environment, you had some sort of dedicated hardware, probably.
Yeah. And I think,
and like the video toaster, the Avids and the video toasters and all that had dedicated encoders.
I want to say stuff like XVID was around. Like there were like MPEG-2 codecs starting to percolate, but it was still pretty early. It was pretty early anyway. Matroska,
ripping DVDs was still hard at this point.
Yeah, sure. Like I don't know if DCSS even existed at this point or not, but maybe not. Anyway. Matroska is the project that begat the MKV file format, for people who don't know, which I very much think of as a latter-day file format for video. But apparently that project started like 25 years ago.
It's just it's a permissive container. So
it's
like
mostly,
MP4
it's mostly open source and open license, and supports a bunch of different codec and stream formats within it. It forked from something. It forked from the multimedia container format, which MCF, apparently.
Never heard of MCF.
There were disagreements in the MCF group, and so one of the founders of that broke off and started Matroska instead.
Interesting.
I just put everything in MKV these days. Like when I record, when I record like the Ramblecast video for Nextlander or any kind of production type situation these days, I just default to, I guess most everybody does. MKV is great because it can survive a broken stream.
That's true.
Like if your computer crashes or power goes out or something while you're recording a video, you can still play back the video and reconstruct it very easily. And like MP4, that is super not a possibility.
When I switched from Premiere to Resolve, I was really surprised because Premiere famously doesn't support MKV.
Oh, still?
Still.
What?
Nope.
Fuck that.
And when I opened DaVinci and just drug an MKV into the media browser by accident, it just reads it. I was like, wow, this is really nice.
Yep. Nice to use open standards for things.
DCSS, just as a side note, was originally released in 1999.
Oh, wow. So, that's earlier than I thought.
But it didn't become a thing until a little bit later.
Can I mention real quick, I saw a post going around where somebody used Little Snitch on macOS. Are you familiar with that?
No, it's Little Snitch.
It's like a network profiler. It'll basically show you, like, by process, all the processes on your computer that are sending out network requests for things.
Oh, boy.
Somebody ran Little Snitch on their Mac where they had all the Adobe Creative Suite stuff installed and no Adobe applications open. And the number of network requests coming out from Adobe-owned processes with no Adobe software running was...
It's a lot.
Concerning. It was a lot. It was like multiple per second. Like it was constant. I was just like, I felt even more validated about not using Adobe stuff when I saw that.
They have, when I uninstalled Creative Suite from my Windows machine, it suddenly the base number of processes running was like 30 less than it had been before.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yep. All right. Is it time for...
Hold on, I got one more.
Okay.
One more little one. 2002, January 1st is when they introduced the Euro, and everybody had to get new keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the note.
I'm looking at my keyboard.
You don't have a Euro key because we're in America.
I still don't have a Euro key.
No, you have to hit Alt and then some numpad numbers.
I guess that's some Unicode sequence.
Yeah, if you type Euro in most word processors, it offers the autocorrect to the symbol.
Really?
No.
Not Google Docs. Yeah, no, you're right. All right. Here we go. This is the last one I've got. The one everybody's been waiting for.
Yeah.
That's right. It's IEEE 802.3AE-2002.
Oh, man. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know what that one is.
I didn't either until I was looking this up, but that was the spec that defined 10 gigabit Ethernet over fiber.
Oh.
This is like Matroska. I put this in here because this was oh, wow. Think about 10 gigabit Ethernet in 2002. And I mean, of course, that was like oriented toward, the enterprise world and the burgeoning data center market. Like, that's what this was conceived for originally. So, of course, consumers wouldn't have known about 10 gigabit Ethernet in 2002, but it's still like, it just really illustrates the point that these specs get defined so far in advance of the technology starting to appear in any kind of visible form to people like us.
Well, it's interesting because this is the time period when, like, around this time is when you were like, oh, a T1's actually not that fast, right? Yeah,
like home cable connections were starting to surpass the T1 pretty substantially.
Surpass, yeah, because like, T1 was 1.4544 megabits in each direction.
I want to say there were probably cable connections that were like 100 megabits at this point, maybe? Or is that aggressive? I'm not sure.
So I was still on DSL at that time. I feel like there were people that got cable connections that were like 50 or 100 megabits. I feel like you had to really pony up for those. So I feel like that was in the premium category at that point.
Yeah, you're right. I think I had like 120 like in 2008 to 10 or something like that. But
yeah.
Anyway, so this was just 10 gigabit Ethernet over fiber. The 10 gigabit over twisted pair was not defined until 2006. But still, that's 2006, and here we are in 2026, and you are just now really starting to see 10 gigabit Ethernet coming to consumer devices in any kind of real way.
It's funny. I've been thinking it might be time to run the uplink between my desktop PC and the garage and run either a fiber or a 10 gig. And I don't know if it's worth crawling around in the crawl space to do it.
Yeah. It depends on what your storage is on the other end, whether that makes sense or not.
It almost certainly doesn't.
I feel like this is a good illustration. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but this is a good illustration of the fact that Ethernet is primarily a data link protocol and not a physical standard, which is something I have to constantly wrap my head around, not just with Ethernet, but other types of cabling standards. Like, you know what everybody means when they say Ethernet cable. Like it's that one, but we have to go deeper. There's another layer to this, which I thought I was all high and mighty for a few years when I was like, oh, that's actually an RJ45 connector. But it's not.
Wait, what?
It's not.
Well, the RJ45 is just the connector type.
No.
Is it the port?
It is the wiring layout.
Really?
It's actually an 8P8C connector.
God.
It's 8 position, 8 connection, or 8 contact, rather, I believe.
Oh, no.
So like that specific plug with the 8 wires on it is 8P8C because I looked it up. There's like 6P4C or,
So then it's RJ45A and RJ45B for the two different wiring standards?
No, I think RJ45S is the one I saw that the telephone company used to use. Basically, the RJ, the registered jack standards are like telco specifications.
Of course they are.
They're like the way the wires are laid out and employed. The physical connector is 8P8C. It's a lot.
Have you ever made an Ethernet wire that's not twisted? Have you ever taken one apart and untwisted it?
No, I've never done that. But I was going to say, I mean, this is, again, to go the other direction with this illustrates the point that Ethernet can go over all kinds of different media.
It's true.
Not just that twisted pair copper cable, fiber, other things as well. But, and then like, that reminds me, like I have this problem all the time. Like what I have called like RS-232 serial.
That's just a port, right?
Frequently for a long time. That is also a data standard protocol, if I'm not mistaken. Like DB9 is the actual connector that carries that, except wait, it's not DB9, it's actually DE9. If you Google those terms, you'll see a ton of pages going like, actually, the port is technically DE9, but everybody knows what you mean when you say DB9. Like, it's just weird to me how confusing. Maybe it goes to how confusingly named all this stuff is. How often people mix up like the data standard versus the physical ports.
I mean, look, would you rather be right or would you rather have everybody know what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
The real. This is getting into some real deep shit here.
Okay.
The real reason I know all this stuff is because I recently went and came up with a standardized naming scheme for all of my network interfaces.
Oh no, Brad.
It's because I have multiple Linux machines around here with multiple types of network interfaces in them that are not just what you think of as Ethernet ports. I've got two computers here with both Ethernet ports and Mellanox cards in them, which use SFP ports, but they all just show up as network interfaces in Linux.
Yeah.
So you need some way.
Shows like ETH1 and ETH0?
Yeah, so that's exactly what led me to this, is that you can manually, and you're in Linux, you actually touch the stuff now. You can manually name your network interfaces in Linux.
Yeah.
And the way Linux names them all now is they're all like ENPS60 whatever. You know what I'm talking about? You've seen that. They're all just like hashed from MAC address or PCI address, or like they just come up with names. I was like, fuck this. I need to know what all these are in a declarative or like predictable way.
You and I are very different people.
My Ethernet ports are now RJ. RJ0, RJ1.
Okay.
For registered jack.
But what about the SFPs?
Those are MLX for Mellanox.
But Mellanox is a brand, not a standard.
Yeah, but
your system's already breaking down,
sure.
Brad.
Well, then I will then I will re-engineer the system if I ever get other things. In fact, if I ever build my own router, it probably will have SFP ports that are not Mellanox in them. So you're probably right. I should.
Yeah, you got to SFP those.
The driver in Linux is called MLX, so it was just easy to identify by calling it that. Anyway, that is a very long-winded and knowingly dense and nerdy way of saying I've been thinking about registered jacks a lot lately.
It's wild. It's wild to me. Like I think about late 90s, early 2000s internet and how excited I was to get like 5 megabit symmetrical, right? So I could host a game server at home. And I was running, I want to say what was the Chris Roberts game? Freelancer?
Did he do Freelancer?
No, the Microsoft published one. It was basically a space trading game around this time.
Chris, are you thinking Privateer?
No, after that. That was in the 90s. This was a 3D one.
Maybe it was Freelancer then?
I think it was Freelancer.
Yeah, yes, that is 99. Yeah, that was him. I never played that.
That game was amazing. Like you basically had a big world. You could have always running, like they released a server that you could run that was just a persistent server, and it would run on like a Pentium 2, Pentium 1, Pentium 3, 600 or something. And I had like 20 people that played that game all the time on the server in my loft.
Man.
And it was back when our power bill was $55 a month, for the record. But it was that was incredible, and I could do that on a DSL connection. And I think now about the fact that I have this gigabit pipe into the house, and we know people with 10 gigabit connections into their homes, and it's just wild because that would have cost you tens of thousands of dollars a month, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Now I feel like kind of a doofus because I had broadband back then and I could have been running game servers and I didn't.
Yeah. Look, imagine how good you would have been at Quake if you had a zero ping.
Man.
Yeah. Think about it.
Okay. Last thing, and then we got to wrap this podcast up. Do you want to know who did the music for Freelancer?
Who?
Andrew Sega.
Wait, what?
This man's name is Andrew Sega.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. That's all I have.
Is he related to the video game Segas?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that is an incredible. In fact, he has stage names such as Necros and Alpha Conspiracy.
And if my name was Andrew Sega, I would never have a stage name. I would just be a Sega. Yeah. Anyway.
Seems like he's probably mostly an electronic artist, but he did some of the music for Freelancer. Anyway, Thanks for listening to this podcast.
Yeah. This is the end of the show. So we always miss stuff on these. I would love to know if you want to send stuff in, send it to techbot@content.town, and we'll talk about the stuff we missed at the end of the month. This was a fun, this was a kind of transitive time, a transitory time for technology, right? We were in between a bunch of things, but the beginning of the modern age, like the launch of affordable Wi-Fi and like multi-threaded CPUs and Firefox, a piece of software I'm running literally right now on my computer in front of me.
Yeah, and like all the digital filmmaking stuff. That's kind of what that was kind of the point I attempted to make at the top of this. Like, this is not a big year for like huge firsts necessarily, but it is a year where you see all these 21st century trends really starting to take hold and like become common.
Like the nascent online video game services for consoles and texting on your phone, instant messaging on your Danger Hip Top. Such a better name than the T-Mobile Sidekick. But anyway, we do this every week. We're listener supported. So without you guys, the listeners, we wouldn't be here. If you want to find out how you can support the show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, that's patreon.com/techpod, where for $5, which I got a plain bagel with cream cheese on it the other day. It cost $5.
Okay.
I was like, this is a pretty good deal.
That's actually cheaper than I would have expected around here.
I mean, it was in Pacifica, so, we got the suburb discount.
That's plain bagel, to be clear. That's everything.
Look, I can't afford everything, man. What are you talking about?
Everything would have been 8 or 9, probably.
Yeah, all those sesame seeds and poppy seeds. Poppy seeds don't grow on trees. I mean, I guess they grow on flower. Anyway, we're listener supported. We wouldn't be here without you all. It's TechPod, patreon.com/TechPod. And yeah, you get access to the Discord, which is full of smart, beautiful people who talk about nerdy stuff like this. And I'm sure there's going to be an extended conversation about, I guarantee you there was something midway through this episode that I was like, oh crap, we forgot to put this on the list. And then we started talking about something else and I forgot to put it on the list. And I was like, we're going to get roasted for forgetting this. So anyway, let them fly in the Discord. And we get the monthly patron exclusive episode where we either do extra questions or we talk about projects we have going or things that we're cooking for future episodes, or maybe you're too small for a full episode. I don't know what we're going to talk about this month. I don't have anything. I have some projects like we could talk about, but
maybe I'll further define some network interfaces. We can talk more about that.
Yeah, you can make some new names. You
know what really brought that about? Sorry, we need to get out of here. But is I created a dummy network interface on a Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking into Anycast DNS. Is what it was, and you need like a virtual network interface on any machine that's going to be doing Anycast.
That's interesting.
Anycast is basically, I don't know if you know what that is. No. I barely understand it. I kind of abandoned or tabled the project, but if you have multiple Pi holes, multiple DNSs around the house, it's a way to only have to have one address for your DNS.
Oh, and then it just doles them out to whatever machine is. Okay.
The router just handles directing all the DNS to whichever one it thinks is like fastest at the time. But so
interesting. That
necessitates having even more network interfaces defined on your thing, and then just the more there are, the more you need to know what they are. So anyway.
Nope. Too much complexity.
Like I said, I spent a couple hours tinkering with it, and I was like, maybe I'll come back to this some other time.
But yeah, that'll do it for us this week. Thanks for everybody for supporting the show. Extra special thank you goes out to our executive producer tier patrons, including OpenAI Delenda Est, Andrew Slosky, Jordan Lippett, Octothorpe Bunny for Work, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you also so much.
Yeah, thank you. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, sir. Hope you have a lovely weekend. And as always, please consider the environment before printing this podcast.